Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome once again to another edition of The Juice Box. Today we've got the last episode of 2023. We will be discussing the AEW World's End pay-per-view, the prediction show with myself and Josh Isenberg, which we had a great time. Interesting card. Looking forward to seeing how the card pans out, and we'll get to that shortly. But I would just like to make a little note here. Just a little personal note. I'm not going to reveal too much, but a wrestling fan that I grew up with that wrestled in backyard wrestling federations, and I wrestled in his, he wrestled in mine, actually passed away on Christmas, and just a local guy. And I don't know, I just wanted to talk about it just briefly here. He was a huge wrestling fan, a whole bunch of DVDs. I think he's a big belt collector, and unfortunately, just health circumstances just weren't working and caught up to him, and he unfortunately passed away on Christmas. And yeah, I went to the same high school as he did. I'm not going to reveal any personal information or what have you, but it was just a tough way to end the Christmas holiday. And as a wrestling fan, losing someone that was also a wrestling fan, it just really sucks. And, you know, like it was even in the obituary that he was a huge wrestling fan, and it's just hard to see. And went to the viewing, and it was hard to just be around, knowing, you know, all the fun times and the the wrestling times that we had, and talked about wrestling and how passionate I know he was. And it's just a tough situation, and I just wanted to use this platform as just a way to vent. I did get to talk to Matt Presto, who one of the guys I grew up with, and who I frequently mention on this show. I was the best man at his wedding, and just hashed out a bit about what happened to him. And, you know, we just talked about wrestling in that regard too, like just a way to cope with things, just turn it around and talk about it in a wrestling sense. It's tough to deal with something like that, but we remarked, hey, for what it's worth, as a wrestling fan, I'm happy that he got to see something like CM Punk come back. I know that's such small potatoes, and I know that really, in the big scheme of things, does not matter. But to him, I know that it mattered a whole hell of a lot. So it was just a rough way to end the Christmas holiday, and I'm not trying, to garner any sympathy here. I just wanted to mention that to begin the show as just a dedication to him and his wrestling fandom, because this podcast is for the fans, by the fans, and he was a fan for sure, and we'll be thinking about him going forward. So rest in peace, and the show will continue. Outside of that, we've got World's End, like I said, coming up tomorrow. Long Island should be a interesting show, to say the least. As always, Juicy Steen on Twitter, juicysteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can find the Juice Box. If you could rate and review this show, give it 5 stars. That would be really appreciated. Josh Isenberg, who will be featured in this show, you can follow him on Twitter at JoshIsenberg4. You can also follow me on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet to discuss wrestling t-shirts, wrestling in general, or this podcast, whatever. This is the World's End preview show. We have an interesting little prediction at the end for the main event, which I thought was intriguing by Josh. So a lot of good stuff to dive into here in the Juice Box. Hope you guys have had a wonderful holiday. And yeah, like I said at the beginning of this show, this is the last Juice Box of 2023. We're not at the 1 year anniversary of the show yet, but to complete 2023 is pretty cool considering we started this in January of 2023. So we'll get to that 1 year in a few weeks. But until then, hopefully you guys enjoy the World's End predictions. As always, just enjoy the show. Josh came in, killed it as usual. So yeah, sit back, crack a juice box, and listen to this episode of World's End Predictions, AEW pay-per-view with Josh Isenberg and yours truly, Juice Springsteen, right here on the Juice Box. And welcome once again to another rousing rendition of the Juice Box. Somehow, some way, 2 weeks in a row, we have another Josh in the Juice Box. However, it is a different Josh from last week. It is not Josh Taylor. It is the one, the only. It's prediction day. Josh Isenberg. How are you doing, man?
I am doing well, Juice. Excited to talk AEW World's End, which takes place this Saturday from MJF's backyard in beautiful Long Island, New York.
That's right. It's going to be an interesting show. I mean, they announced this random new pay-per-view a couple of months ago, I think, and they had never had a December pay-per-view before. So this is a new venture, especially with the last 2 or 3 years. WWE has not had a December pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we had day one a couple of years ago, but that was January 1, which, now they're doing for Monday Night Raw. So I think it's a good idea. You're giving ourselves, giving themselves, not necessarily that long, November to end of February, March to build. Right. They're kind of putting a stopgap here and some pretty good matches to fill out the card. So looking forward to a handful of them and a handful that are just a little questionable.
Maybe a little more than a handful are questionable in my eyes. But yeah, you mentioned day one, and now they're doing Raw day one, and they're going to do SmackDown New Year's Revolution. So it seems like they're taking note that, hey, they're going to push out a pay-per-view, AEW, that is. Mm-hmm. We should at least staple some names to these shows, kind of like what AEW does with their, New Year's Smash and Winter is Coming, these Clash of the Champion type shows. They're just going to staple, and they've been doing that with Great American Bash on the NXT side, Halloween Havoc, stuff like that. So it's interesting to see no pay-per-view for WWE. In fact, they took a week off. Can you believe that? And I say a week off, I mean from TV. Of course, a lot of guys and girls did Baltimore, Madison Square Garden, whatever, but not doing the big TV's got to be a little bit of a nice reprieve, and then they go right back into it as we're headed to Royal Rumble. But we are here for the road to the end of the world, and hopefully, for the love of God, the end of this Devil storyline. Not because I'm disinterested, not because I really can't wait to see who it is, but all the above. I am kind of losing interest. I'm seeing the ends of the go-home show for this show being 2 guys not named, potentially not even part of a group. We just know that the Devil has, quote, henchmen. Take the Ring of Honor tag titles that don't, let's be real, don't really matter in the grand scheme of things in the AEW realm from MJF. And now MJF's just going to go into this main event slot. We'll, of course, talk about it later. But I'm more curious as to who this damn Devil is and the payoff that it has to be sustained for it to have all this build be worth it. What are your thoughts going into this show with the hype of the Devil, where it could be potentially if it was Adam Cole's injury that made it further, and where you see it stand and if it's going to be revealed?
I think it should be revealed either at World's End or the following week on Dynamite. You have to give an idea of where you're going at this point and who you're going with. So I think ultimately my prediction is Adam Cole, and I think there's a really good reason. There's a lot of things they could do to it, and they've obviously prolonged it for a reason, which I think the reason is the injury to Adam Cole. I'm still interested to see the revelation, but they put themselves into a situation now where I don't know if whoever is revealed that it's going to be a big enough splash, a big enough wow factor due to the amount of time that they put into it. And I realistically can only think that the reveal of the Devil, whoever it is, their quote henchmen, his buddies have to also be somebody. So
Yeah.
whether it's the Young Bucks and Adam Cole, I don't think this will happen, but maybe it's, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish and the Undisputed Era come, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of options because Adam Cole's had all of those friends. But, I think we find out at the end of this pay-per-view who the devil is, maybe a huge clue, so and then you have to tune in on Wednesday, or just the reveal. So that's probably the biggest thing that I see in this card. And looking at the card, it's again, some good, some questionable matches, and I'm excited to talk about what we're going to see there on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. We can dive into that devil talk towards the end of this prediction show. Let's get into the 0 hour for World's End. Man, everything is just not. It seems down and downtrodden. The 0 hour World's End. 2024 is just around the corner. I think we're gonna have some AEW. It's also funny you mentioned Stopgap. It is interesting that this show happens and then nothing, at least on the pay-per-view end, until March 3rd with Sting's final match. So this is going to be Sting's second to last pay-per-view match, which is kind of interesting considering he was not, I don't think, anticipated for this show until the Kenny Omega injury news came down. So interesting in that regard as well. Let's kick off the 0 hour. I'm not going to spend too much time on this first one because we don't know who's going to be in it, but 20-man battle royal for a future AEW TNT title match. Now, we do know that Adam Copeland will be facing Christian for that TNT title, so you would assume whoever comes out of that as champion would maybe face this person next. Without any entrance, I have no idea who it could be. Do you have any idea who it could be without even knowing who's in it?
Honestly, no. But I will say I would love to see them potentially cook up somebody who used to be a TNT champion and have a battle royal and have somebody just absolutely destroy the rest of the field, and that man being Wardlow.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're talking about Wardlow, but that couldn't be right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because it's on the 0 hour, the pre-show, that you are under the assumption that a lot of these guys, it might be perfect. It might be tag teams, might be a perfect opportunity for Wardlow just to breeze through them. Whether it's like a team like Butcher and the Blade, like those type of people that you might see, Action Andretti, those very low card individuals, that he can just absolutely annihilate. It doesn't affect them, but it makes him look like a monster. So without knowing anybody, I think Wardlow is a guy that you need to get back cooking. And, he might get a TNT championship opportunity. I know that there's the whole MJF thing, hanging over. So it might be somebody not as, as popular, as important in the long-term plans for a guy like Wardlow is with maybe the world championship. But again, just a shot in the dark. If they really want to do more MJF, Adam Cole, Wardlow doesn't need to be the next guy in line, but you need to have him do something. And the best thing he's ever done was his multiple TNT championship reigns and really breezing through the competition.
I would agree. And it is interesting with that MJF thing. Like, it really all it matters is once this devil is revealed or what have you, and we know like who else is gonna, like, who's really challenging MJF or what have you, then we can kind of, if Wardlow wasn't one of those guys and he's not the devil, okay, then he can go on his own. Maybe he's doing this title match, but without that knowledge, it sucks. There's the uncertainty, which I guess is a good thing, about who could even challenge for the TNT title if the aspirations for the world title are there. So I guess if Wardlow is not a part of that devil thing, I would wager him as well. But I'd like to see an unknown, maybe not unknown in the sense of an AEW unknown, but someone in the lower, I would say Shawn Spears, but he just got granted his release as of this recording. So I would assume he appears in another Battle Royal potentially next year in the number 10 slot, but that's just me.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun. It's almost as if they've done that before. So I'm not sure without the participants. Initially, I was thinking, Hangman Page, but I don't think he would necessarily. I guess it's not really lowering yourself to the TNT title, but I think he has stake in a lot of other things that he has to deal with before he would go for a quote unquote mid card title. Speaking of titles, I wouldn't call it mid card because it's before the card. So Hook defends the FTW title against Wheeler Yuta. Honestly, don't know how much is going to go into this storyline wise. Again, it's FTW, it's FTW rules. I'm at a loss. So I'm just gonna take Hook to retain this thing. Is Wheeler Yuta still in the BCC? So if he loses, I guess that would maybe we can see a trickle down effect if he loses that match, and maybe Moxley, when we get to that, loses his match. Maybe there's some cracks forming in the BCC. What do you think here with Hook and Wheeler?
Yeah, I think Hook picks up a victory here. Maybe a 10-minute physical fight where Wheeler gets his stuff in. Hook, does his moves. It is interesting though. You talk about the BCC, and this could be something that we see in 2024. There's not enough importance of their group together consistently on television that make me feel like they're a stable. And it really, I think even less than a year ago at this time, the BCC took the biggest blow whenever Regal departed AEW.
That's right.
Where it just seemed like since then they've just been a handful of guys in matches and not really progressing what they actually are. So, I'm not spending much time on this one because I think we all know what happens here. But Hook picking up the victory and just hate to say it, but like just a meaningless pre-show match, where they're just trying to get as many people on the card. And Hook is a guy that always confuses me why he's not at a higher level right now, especially after his debut and what they were able to do with him at an early age. And they've cooled him down consistently, but that seems to be what they've done with a lot of individuals. But Hook wins this match, keeps the FTW championship.
I like to agree. I don't know why Hook hasn't gotten, any more sustainability outside of this FTW thing. He doesn't. I'm not saying he has to go for the world title, but he couldn't challenge for the TNT. Like, I'd put him in that battle royal. Get him outside of this little Taz lineage thing. I love it that he's Taz's kid, and I'm not blaming either of them for how it's being booked. But it seems like you're booking yourself into a corner with only things that is familiar to the character, whenever right. I think he's more interesting outside of his origin of his character. Do a TNT title, go for a tag title. They'd Hookhausen. That you can come up with something, I think, to get him outside of the 0 hour. But at least he is on the show in some capacity, so not too bad. I would say Hook still gets the victory, and I'm hoping there could be a crack forming if Wheeler Yuta does lose, because let's get into the main card where we finally found out after weeks and weeks of this controversial, is that the term maybe for some fans, this AEW Continental Classic finally got to the Gold League and Blue League finals this past Wednesday on Dynamite, and we, out of all of that, the round robin tournament, we get Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston for the inaugural Triple Crown Championship, which is, let's talk about confusing. As a WCW fan, I could not be more sympathetic. Ring of Honor World Championship, New Japan Strong Openweight Championship, and the inaugural AEW Continental Championship. That's as confusing as for me to read it as I'm sure it is for you to listen to it, Josh. I love the match because these two guys have a great history. I love that Eddie Kingston, in my prediction, of course, I think is going to win this. And as a guy who, I love the adversity that he's come back against Daniel Bryan with him calling him, a bum. And he says, I'm king of the bums. I hope there's a T-shirt by Saturday. That'd be fantastic. So I love that. I was disappointed that Swerve, didn't win this. But when I look at the stakes and I see what is going on and what this is for, I think this is actually perfect for Eddie Kingston. I just kind of wish that maybe this tournament was positioned in another way where Swerve could have won for more stakes. But in this particular way, I think it's set up for Eddie Kingston to win. He's the underdog. He's almost the ultimate underdog. He looks like an underdog. And Jon Moxley is one of the best guys AEW has, if not the piece that's really held AEW together through this entire run of AEW. Jon Moxley, although you could call him a transplant of WWE, has really solidified himself as a huge deal in AEW. So all that being said, I think Eddie Kingston takes this. I'm just confused with all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I think we've had some really great wrestling matches, but the scoring system it's not hard, but it's just like there's too much going on, and when individuals have no points, they're still competing, and it's just it was a convoluted idea, which we got good matches out of it, and I think that was the point. But they could have easily simplified it. So I'm actually going to say Moxley wins this. So that's a little bit of a disagreement with you, and I understand the story that they've written with Eddie Kingston being the ultimate underdog, his match with Danielson. But when I think about the great landscape of AEW, every time that I see, and I'm calling Kingston an AEW guy, I know he was on the Indies forever, but he's basically a born and bred AEW guy. And you're right with Moxley being that constant, that peg in every, in every storyline or every problem, they always went back to him because they know he was Mr. Reliable, which I don't know if he would have said that he was that guy before AEW. So when I look at everything, I think that you give Moxley the victory here, and you can continue the struggle for Kingston, because I think once Kingston reaches the mountain, whatever that mountain is, whether it be this, championship or, a tournament winner or potentially something more in the future, there has to be that one big moment for him. And I don't know if this is a big enough moment for Eddie Kingston to say, hey, I've overcome everything. This is what I've earned it. And this is what I've, gotten. So I think there's still more meat on the bone of Eddie Kingston being the chaser and not, quote, the champion. And that's why I think Jon Moxley wins here.
I see those points, and I thought Eddie Kingston's biggest moment, at least thus far, was winning the Ring of Honor title at Arthur Ashe. I thought that was a great moment for him, but it also seemed like maybe that was the peak for a character like him. Not saying he doesn't deserve it or whatever. It's just, there's only so many guys and room on the card to really shift certain things around. And, Eddie Kingston is a guy that, as much as I've been critical of the Ring of Honor usage, has probably benefited from the Ring of Honor usage the most, because even if I or you or anybody considers Ring of Honor, quote, a dead brand, the titles are still being featured on AEW, and the lineage is still there. And even for the world title, I would say at least has some value to an extent. So for Eddie Kingston to have that, I think is nice. I just think he pulls this off. I think this is something. I don't know if, again, I don't know if the Arthur Ashe thing was the peak, but I think this is as close to a peak for him as he could get. I don't see him. I know he challenged for the world title at one point, but I don't know if he can get any higher than an inaugural Triple Crown champion. So I like it, Eddie, in this match. I just think it's going to be a fun match, and Long Island is going to be going crazy for Eddie Kingston. So looking forward to seeing that. I think the crowd's going to be unglued for a lot of these, especially with some local guys. Let's get to the TBS title, Abaddon versus Julia Hart. Man, we're going to talk about how the Go Home show kind of fell flat for MJF, but for Julia Hart, same thing. Sky Blue had a match with Chris Statlander, and then they beat up on Chris Statlander, and Willow comes out, and then Willow and Chris are in the ring. Julia and Sky Blue are on the rampway, and then Abaddon comes out and dances, doesn't attack Julia, doesn't attack anybody, and they're all just in this weird, one on the ramp, one on the entranceway, and one in the ring, just weird. I don't know. It kind of seems thrown together. I like Abaddon as a character, and I think her and Julia Hart specifically are the perfect gimmick versus gimmick match here. And I'm sure maybe the in-ring will do okay. As a matter of fact, I'm a big fan of what Julia Hart's been able to do since really branching away from just being the cheerleader for the Varsity Blondes, and now just being a full-fledged character in the House of Black. So I think Julia Hart retains. I'm just disappointed with the build, but I mean, you can say that about every match on this card.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the build too. I think Julia Hart and Abaddon are two unique characters that need a longer crash course, a longer road to get to their inevitable championship match. So Abaddon, coming back, unique as all hell, with her makeup. It's just crazy to see how talented she is. And I've always liked her, even though when she was gone in AEW for seemingly a year or two without being on television. So getting an opportunity to showcase that, Julia Hart is the cash cow here. She is the prize for, in my mind, she is the second best woman active on the AEW roster. aside from the individual that we'll talk about, I assume, next. But Julia Hart picks up the win here. This match is more intriguing to me than the AEW Women's World Championship match, even though I think, again, Julia Hart is number 2 currently for me on that women's roster.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the women's world title match more so than Julia and Abaddon. But I agree with you, and I like what I said. I think Julia's really found her own in this women's division as a singles competitor. And I like to see Abaddon get a shot here. So maybe she'll prove everybody wrong and kind of give us a solid little match, and everything we've said up until this point will be moot, which is all I could hope for, because how many times have we predicted something happened, Damian Priest, and it never happened. So maybe it'll prove us right and give us a good match. Speaking of that women's world title match, we have Timeless Toni Storm, who, again, one of the best characters AEW has had since its inception. And it kind of came out of nowhere, and I'm grateful that they are pulling it off. Versus Rio. Don't know why Rio just came back into the fold, but here she is getting a world title match. And I like Rio. I like Toni Storm. I think the match will be great, but how did we get here? Why does this make sense? Because it doesn't. Like, I'm looking for them to tell me why this makes sense, other than Rio made a save. I'm challenging. Like, is there any sense to this? I have Toni Storm retaining. Again, Rio's a great competitor, first women's champion, but I just see no build, and it's tough. It seems like they just wanted to get to this pay-per-view and have great matches.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And I mean, in my mind, and I think our pal Justin LeBar tweeted something about this maybe last week or the week before about Rio over Saraya instead of Saraya facing Timeless Toni. I mean, that storyline's already there, with the Outcasts. And I don't know why they wouldn't capitalize on that, especially since – no offense to Rio, but Saraya is much more marketable and much more real when it comes to an opponent for somebody like Toni Storm. So, but I agree. Toni's gimmick has been one of the best that AEW has come up with. I'm always entertained by it. It is must-watch television for me. But yeah, I think Timeless Toni wins this match. Again, I think this is just another random match on this card that hopefully after this, and this is what I really want to see moving forward, is more Saraya, more Ruby, and more Toni. We really didn't get like a very big definitive split from all three of them. I mean, I know the match obviously that they had in London, I believe it was, but I still think that there's more that you can put with these three women together. There wasn't like this definitive, okay, that's it with them, and that we're never going to come back to them. Like, I want to see more of those three women. And I mean, even Dr. Britt Baker, I'm not sure what the hell they're doing with her. Rio, in my mind, is like,
there's a few, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, you started mentioning other talent. There's so many women. I feel like Chris Statlander finally being in a match the other night. I was like, well, why can't she go against Toni Storm? Like, where are these other women? And it's been.
Well, she's the one that broke Jade Cargill's undefeated streak and then lost the TBS championship and haven't done anything with her.
And I've been saying, and everybody notices that the 9:30 slot is always the women's slot. And not only did they have a match, but then they had a promo too. Like, they just stuff it right into that. How about get rid of Rampage as a show and make it a 1 hour just women's show? Like, do something. You have a very solid women's roster. Now, in the case of Britt, if Adam Cole is the devil, I am on board with Britt not being involved because in the women's division, because I would assume she has to either keep quiet or stay off TV to not, bring forth any ideas. But go ahead, like you were saying, there's so many other talent that I would have that have built-in stuff with Toni.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I think this match, I'm not interested in this match much, because of that. And I want to see consistency with the women's division, and WWE, I think, does a really good job with that. There's times where I don't necessarily care about the women's tag team division because they typically throw women together there. But at least they're consistently trying to spotlight the individuals, and they have enough time. And, AEW has 5 hours, every week to spotlight these women, and there's just no consistency there. So very long story short, Toni Storm wins this match, and Toni Storm goes on to bigger and better things. I just can't see Rio being an honest competitor or an honest champion, in 2024.
Yeah, not at the moment. Like I said, she first champion, and I thought she was a great first champion for AEW. It's just you should come back around to her at a certain point, not throw her in because you're not really sure what you want to do with the rest of the women's roster.
Yeah.
Like Nyla Rose, like literally, how many other women have been on these Dynamites that could have been inserted here and arguably had a better chance against Tony Storm? You know?
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll see. Maybe, like you said, hopefully 2024, maybe something becomes of Tony Storm, and we get like an Outcast, furthering breakup, type deal with those guys who are already, like you said, in a storyline that has had some fuel for a while. So maybe they'll go forward with that. But let's continue. This was supposed to be a tag title match between Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho versus Big Bill and Ricky Starks, but diverticulitis took out Kenny Omega, and he is not going to be performing in AEW for the near future. Hopefully he gets better and back in the ring sooner rather than later, but they had to pivot, and now we get the second to last pay-per-view match for Sting, unless they somehow create a pay-per-view between now and March 3rd. Darby Allin, Sting, and La Sex Gods, who made a triumphant return, Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho, taking on Powerhouse Hobbs, Takeshita, the Don Callis family, Big Bill, and Ricky Starks in an 8-man tag team match. Tough break for Kenny Omega. Like I said, hopefully he gets better. That is no joke. That took out Brock Lesnar a long time ago. It's a very, very serious issue. So serious that Don Callis, even as terrible of a human being that he is, posted about Kenny Omega and hopefully wishing him a quick recovery. So it was a very serious deal. So with this pivot now, no tag title match. I'm assuming that'll come some other time, whether Jericho and Omega or someone else will just get a shot in the future. But now we get this 8-man. You get the introduction of Sting teaming with Jericho again, which is pretty cool. I like all 8 guys. I think it's a tough break that Kenny couldn't do the tag match, but I like seeing all these guys get a shot on pay-per-view. And again, with Sting's final match looming March 3rd, Greensboro Coliseum at Revolution. It's nice to get him one more pay-per-view match guaranteed before that. So give me the good guys to win here, because I have no idea what they're planning for Revolution and Sting. So what do you see here?
Good guys with the win for sure. Sting hasn't lost in AEW, and he's going to go on to his retirement match being undefeated. Not sure what they're going to do with that. We have some time to see where they try to reveal their secret and their plans. Good guys win this match, and a lot of good talent here. I think you're going to get a lot of good back and forth, give this maybe in the middle of the card, maybe split up the women's matches with this match in between, giving us, that Jericho entrance and everything else. But yeah, overall, the good guys pick up the victory here.
Yeah, I think we got 2 separate bats. We got Floyd and then Sting's bat, so that'll be cool.Maybe it's a 10-man tag, as it were. But I think that Sting goes in still undefeated into that last match, which, a couple months away. I don't know what they're planning on. It could be as simple as Darby Allin being his opponent, but we will see when we get there. 4 more matches to discuss here. These are all singles matches, which I find interesting, considering we, no tag title match, obviously, and then just one multiple person match. Everything else is a singles match. So I find it pretty unique in that regard. This, I think, could continue and could be a ladder match, if not this show, which is just a no DQ match. I'd love to have seen this match be a ladder match for obvious reasons, but Christian Cage defends the TNT title against Adam Copeland. This is as blood feud can get. I guess no DQ is the next step. And like I said, ladder match seemed to be the mark. And now, unless they don't feel comfortable doing that, which I don't see how they couldn't, this might not be their final match. I have Christian retaining somehow, some way. The no DQ stipulation benefits the heel here, and Christian is as dastardly a heel as anybody. So give me Christian to retain. I know you're a huge Edgehead. What do you see in this match?
I think Christian retains here, but I'm going to give you a quick throwback and throw it right back to you and say, do we see the AEW debut of Beth Copeland?
I wouldn't hate that.
With the insertion of Nick Wayne's mom, even if she comes down and gets in between, whatever she tries to do.
Yeah. Well,
And also for even more heat, I could honestly see Christian or Nick Wayne
yep.
attacking Beth in the match.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
now if that happens, I think Edge wins. If that does
Right.
not happen, then Christian wins. I want it to happen, but I can't see a world where if Beth Phoenix comes down
Yeah.
and Christian takes her out, or she tries to attack Christian and Christian levels her. I mean, what more heat can you get from Christian aside from talking about everybody's dead father than
That's right.
attacking his best friend's wife? So
Right.
a lot of juice on this one, I think. Pun
Oh,
intended.
there's so much juice. Now, it's funny you mention so you mentioned Beth. Now, I'm pretty sure didn't Randy Orton do something to her in anticipation of their match
Yes,
uh
I think he hit her with an
back
RKO.
well, of course he did. Back at before the WrestleMania in 2020. So she's no stranger to getting involved in these types of matches. And it's funny how you mentioned Nick Wayne's mom, who is not a wrestler. Spoiler. So it would be funny to see her and Beth come into contact like Chuck Norris and Jeff Jarrett did at Survivor Series '94, where one wrestler goes against a non-wrestler and the other person just dominates them. I think Beth could take over, and I think Beth could take out Nick Wayne, to be honest, which leads me to believe Christian eventually takes out Beth, which
Yep.
yeah, if it continues you don't think that this should this have been a ladder match, or do you think that they still could do a ladder match? What are your thoughts on that? Like, isn't that an obvious thing?
Yeah, I think they still do another match. I think so. Here's what I think will actually happen. Now that I'm thinking about it and like trying to put out all the pieces, I think Beth gets involved. I think Christian takes out Beth. I think there's going to be shenanigans all over the place. So here's what I'll predict. I'll predict Beth gets involved. Christian takes her out and he hits a concerto on Edge to win. We might see Edge off of TV for a few weeks and then come back with Beth. And I also think that there's a really good opportunity. This is a ladder match between Adam and Christian at the March What Revolution, because with the Sting match, you're gonna get a nostalgic match there. This is another nostalgic match, and I think that'll be the finale. I still just don't think Edge or Adam Copeland's going to win the TNT Championship. I don't think he needs to. I don't think it means anything to him as much as it has ever meant to Christian. So that's how I book this. Keep it open ended because there's still so much more. I mean, he's only been in the company for 4 months right now. So there's still a lot more you can do with him and Christian.
I agree. I don't think Adam Copeland needs the TNT title, and yeah, a lot of the factors I think we've both been kind of pushing back and forth could lead to that ladder match potentially, especially with if Beth gets involved or if Adam gets taken out. It's an ODQ, so maybe a stretcher job, like something really severe, puts him out for a while. Maybe then Christian can call out Beth and recruit her, like all these little things and a lot of heel work. And then you get him attacked with a ladder. And yeah, I mean, ladder match in the Greensboro Coliseum, that's his old school plus our old school of, No Mercy 99 and everybody's old school with Sting in the Greensboro Coliseum. I think that would be a really fun way to bridge that gap. And then hopefully that would be the end of that. I just, knowing those two guys, and when they weren't really, at least when both Edge and Christian weren't really wrestling and they did their podcasts, how they talked about wrestling and just how they were so easy to just like push ideas on each other and be like, hey, we should do this, and they just map it out so well. I find it incredibly hard to believe that these guys didn't sit down one night, have a couple drinks, and just map out like, look, we could do this and this, and it leads here, and we can take it all the way, because you said, October 1st is when Adam Copeland debuted. You could stretch this to March, and I don't think, it's too crazy to think you've gotten all the juice out of Edge and or Adam Copeland and Christian at this point. So, yeah, let it go further, and I just still I mean, this is going to be a great match. I think a lot of heat is going to be in here. I'm going to take Christian to retain. Like I said, no DQ really favors the heel here.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So you have Christian winning?
I have Christian winning. Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's get these next two matches. There's 4 guys in them, but one of them is really on the upswing. The other 3 are not. Let's start with Miro and Andrade El Idolo. These are not 2 of the guys that are up on the up and up. Honestly, when I look at this match, I just see two of the more misused WWE talents against each other. Now, Mira, I think, has been maybe even underutilized in AEW. I think Andrade has been used well to an extent in AEW. However, I think the ceiling is a little higher. I think he could really go far if booked correctly. Yet here we are again with CJ Perry being somebody else's manager, and I just don't know what is going on. Like, can they not can they not just do Miro and CJ? Like, they are married. We all know it, and we knew it in WWE, and they were like, no. She likes Bobby Lashley. Like, what do you mean? So I don't know. This is a meaningless thing. I think Miro gets the win, and hell, maybe CJ goes back with Miro as long as her finger's still intact.
Yeah, exactly. I think Miro gets the win. I think he actually pairs with CJ after this match. Yeah, I don't want to waste too much time on it because I'm exactly the same way as you think. Is I think two guys that came into AEW with a lot of excitement and intrigue from the wrestling fan because of what they saw them in WWE as. But I mean, you look at what WWE, Miro, biggest stage he had was against John Cena, and he was pretty popular. He was in championship matches a couple of years later, albeit random ones, not necessarily at the top of the card. Andrade, similar situation where he had a couple of big moments, but nothing too crazy aside from, his feud with Mysterio and stuff like that. But yeah, I think at the end of the day here, there's no need for CJ to be recruiting other people aside from her husband, especially since they make it very well known on TV and through all of their social media that they are husband and wife. It's not like they hide it. So, it's just, it's a forced business relationship that she's trying to have with these other superstars right now, or these other wrestlers right now. And yeah, I think Miro wins this. I don't see Andrade being in AEW much longer, so I think Miro picks up the victory.
That's an interesting take. Do you think he goes back to WWE, Andrade?
I mean, he could. They'd welcome him back with open arms. I think he goes back to Mexico. I think that he can do everything he wants in Mexico. The one criticism I'll have about Andrade, and this is just based on seeing many other international stars do the work to learn the English language, and it sounds so single and closed-minded that they have to learn how to speak English fluently to get over with a crowd, but that's really what this business is now. Like, prime example, Gunther talked about how he just worked tirelessly and effortlessly to learn the English language, and he has an accent, obviously, but he's so great on the mic. Yeah. Andrade never did that. And big difference, Santos Escobar did that. He has a wonderful ability to connect with the audience in language that he speaks, even though that's not his first language. Andrade never did that. So I just don't think he will ever get to any sort of main event level with that language barrier. Not many people do. Nakamura, they have to do video packages for him. So
yeah, and now that was the caveat I was going to put with Nakamura. Yet I think that's actually benefited Nakamura's character in particular because it's almost like a live anime cartoon like comic book style thing, and I think it plays to Nakamura better that way. Now, of course, you can't just do that with everybody that doesn't speak English as their first language, and I think you made good points with Santos Escobar as well as Gunther. I just think that there's a lot for Andrade to accomplish, and I just have a feeling that I think he might work better under a Triple H regime. Mm-hmm. I just think the certain type of wrestling that's going on right now would benefit him in that realm. I also can agree, though. I think he could definitely go to Mexico, AAA, what have you, kind of just get back to his roots, and just really just get back into working higher level matches. And then maybe I do see him potentially going back to WWE. Again, his wife's there. I don't know. I just think where things have gone and how maybe the grass looked greener in AEW, I just don't know if that's where he should be. So we'll have to see. I don't know what his contract status is.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure either. And that's true. The grass is greener, and the transition, I mean, can you say that the grass has been greener for anybody more than Swerve Strickland whenever he left WWE?
Yeah, and again, I don't even want to pin it on the guy because the guy had health issues, and I'm lucky, that he can even wrestle. Keith Lee. I've 2019 Survivor Series, and it's NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown, and that crazy match. And Keith Lee looks great against Roman, and this is pre-Bloodline Roman. And then he goes to the Royal Rumble. He has a huge moment with Brock Lesnar.
Yep.
Beats
Randy Orton on a pay-per-view match.
Yes, Keith Lee was on such a roll, and then the pandemic hits. His health had a scare. He goes to AEW, and I still think there was meat there. Like, it's not like, he wasn't over. And then for whatever reason, again, it's tough for me to pinpoint what the problems are, if it's booking or whatnot, but it just never really worked with Keith Lee. However, the best thing I think Keith Lee was a part of since being in AEW was tagging with Swerve Strickland. They split, and now Swerve Strickland is arguably the next in line, if not one or two next in line to be AEW champion or have a shot at the title legitimately. The Swerve is a guy who's had great matches with Hangman and defeated him in both those matches. He's on the up and up. He was just in a triple threat match to potentially get into the final of the Continental Classic, and he couldn't pull that off. But, I mean, he was against Moxley and Jay White. I mean, two of the top dogs in the world right now. So they signed this match against Keith Lee. I initially thought that the contract was going to be against Hangman, and they were just going to run that back for an unannounced third match, but, obviously announced, just kind of short notice. But I also thought maybe they'll play that later. I think the next time that they'll face each other would be if Swerve is the champion, which I think is the better move. But I like this little Keith Lee match. I like that they're putting it in. Like, they have the history, and I'm looking forward to see now that Swerve's where he's at to have his match with Keith Lee. Maybe it'll elevate Keith Lee a little bit more, but I still think Swerve's going to get the win.
Yeah, Swerve gets the win here. A guy that I don't think any of his momentum was shot by not getting to the champion, the final round of the Continental Classic. So I'm not worried about that from that perspective. Not going to beat a dead horse on how much I just despise Prince Nana. We've talked about that multiple times. It's just not my cup of tea, and everybody can have their own taste. But this match in general, I think, will showcase more of more of what Swerve does best, and that is the psychology in the ring. He has the history, he has the feud with Keith Lee. I don't know what they do with Keith Lee moving forward aside from what they've kind of already done, but Swerve Strickland has been the guy in AEW that has done the most. And prime reason, and I know this, Tony Khan loves Swerve Strickland, and that's why he got the opportunity, and everybody needs an opportunity, but he's taken the opportunity he's gotten and has run with it, and it's shown how much he can do whenever he's not restricted. Heck, he's kind of in a stable, but he is the stable. He's not the stable, one of 3 or 4 of Hit Row. He is, his entire stable. Swerve picks up the win here.
Yeah, he is Mogul Embassy. He really is. And I know you have the issue with Prince Nana, but I think if anything, it just gets some heat, whether that's go away heat with you or whatnot. I think I like the pairing. And as long as he doesn't swerve when he drives, I think Swerve's going to get this win. So let's go to the big one, the main event, MJF against Samoa Joe, Long Island. MJF's going to be the biggest face in the history of pro wrestling at this show. Samoa Joe, who, even though I didn't believe it, and of course they set it up that way, and then of course he turns at the last second, was on MJF's side. Who's attacking you? I don't know. And who's the devil? The devil attacked him, and it's not me. Lo and behold, they do 3 weeks in a row of we're going to do this match, and then it didn't happen. And not only did this third time finally happen, Samoa Joe reveals that, no, he's not actually the devil, but he's been working with the devil. So I don't know what that really means. He's not a masked man. The masked men took the Ring of Honor tag titles, which of any note, I don't know if that is anything. I don't know. I honestly, this whole match hinges on a reveal of the devil, no matter who wins or loses this match. I think unless this is an amazing reveal, I think the devil storyline has unfortunately really, really hurt MJF's character, whether that's his fault or not. Just the setup of it, he trusts everybody, but then he doesn't trust them, and then even if he trusts them for a week, it's over. Samoa Joe already turned on him. So I think MJF retains this. I think if there's a reveal here, it's got to be something big, and I just think it's going to be Adam Cole. Depending on how you do it, it could be big if it's Adam Cole, but To this point, AEW has not shown me that they will pull off something like this with the hype and pull it off successfully that the fans can appreciate. So I ask you, who wins this match? Who's the devil? Do the masked men get revealed? What happens here, man?
Samoa Joe is your new AEW World Champion come Saturday night.
Woo!
And here's my thought process here.
Hear it.
Here's my thought process. Samoa Joe is a viable candidate, a viable champion, a viable opponent. Okay, and I'm going to make this short and sweet because I'm on a time restraint here. You know, I'm not going to do a 7-hour prediction show like the pay-per-view is going to be 6 hours. At this point. But I think that Samoa Joe wins. I think the mystique or the intrigue of has MJF really re-signed or is he still a free agent? Is he going to come back to AEW? They're going to play into that. Now, my bet, he stays with AEW. But my bet also is he gets the championship, 2 championships, the tag titles, and the world championship dropped. And that's when the rumors start. Is he coming back to AEW? Pull him off of TV for a month, 6 weeks, whatever you need to make it believable. If anything, MJF wants to make people believe. I mean, his whole thing whenever he left AEW before, people were really like, what's going on here? He's blurring the lines of reality, which he does best. The devil is revealed as Adam Cole. Whether that's at World's End, which I think it might, it all depends on his health. If not, we can reveal it on Wednesday, where he's helped Samoa Joe and, you know, whether the guys are you know, the Young Bucks or whoever, it doesn't matter as much if Samoa Joe becomes champion because you don't want to overshadow Joe as champion with the reveal of the devil, even though it most likely will. And you have these individuals wanting to force out MJF and attack MJF because he has been that guy that has been very vocal about the bidding war of 2024, which isn't fair to the AEW roster. So overall, that's how I think it goes. There's a lot of ways they can go about doing it, but at the end of the day, I would be surprised if MJF retained because I think they can really do a lot of making us think, making us wonder, is he coming back to AEW? And when he does, that's the pop you need. And he's even a bigger babyface that he decided to come back to AEW.
Forget everything I said. I'm gonna hop on board. I'm gonna take my straw and put it into the other juice box, which is Samoa Joe winning this thing. And you made a great point that I just like glossed over it, but I'm just so confused by this devil thing because I've been scarred with the higher power angle, the Black Scorpion angle, the Butcher at Starrcade 94. I've been so scarred by all of these masked men angles that I have no faith that it's going to be pulled off to an extent that I can at least appreciate or be satisfied with, or that makes sense. So yeah, Joe winning, and then whether the devil is revealed or not really doesn't matter. If the devil comes out and attacks MJF, but Joe gets the win and the devil's not there, Joe's been already talked about as working with the devil, so it's really almost irrelevant, and you can pull off the devil at some other point. And when you do that, if it's not at the pay-per-view, like you said, if MJF goes away, he loses the Ring of Honor tag titles, he loses the world title, he goes away, you know, in storyline for a couple weeks, especially as long as it bleeds into January. Hell, let it bleed up until the Royal Rumble week, and then you can really pull a trigger and be like, well, I guess he's not coming. Could he be, you know, and then that's when you have MJF return to confront the devil or reveal who it is, and you get the pop of who the devil might be. Or if it's Adam Cole as the devil already and you get MJF to beat him up, and you also get the reveal that he's signed with AEW, that's a big moment I think you'd like to cash in on. So I'm kind of on board. Samoa Joe's so legit. I think if working with the devil is going to make you maybe a winner here. So I'm going to take Joe here. I like everything you said, man.
I like everything you said, aside from obviously MJF winning. But yeah, we got to smarten you up sometimes, Juice. It's okay.
You know, it's been a long couple of days after the holiday. So, you know, I'm just I've had so much juice this past week. It's just been tough to get back on the up and up. So
there. I see you've had so much of yourself where you need somebody else to tell you about it. I understand.
That's right. I need someone else to tell me. Yeah, I'm the juice box is filled. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting show. As always, Saturday night shows are the best. We also have New Year's Eve the following day. So for a lot of people, this is going to be a nice transition into another day of relaxation which leads into a party, New Year's Day. So this is a fun time to have a show. I thought Day 1 was an interesting pay-per-view back then, but I like kind of leading into the New Year's holiday. So this will be a fun show. Sting's next to last pay-per-view show, maybe a Reveal the Devil. A lot of interesting stuff, but a lot of stuff that I'm just curious to see what happens after it's over, like how it's pulled off, which may not be good, but I'm going to buy the pay-per-view and tune in anyway, so what the hell does it matter? So any other last words before we sign off for 2023? This is the last Juice Box of 2023, man.
2023, a hell of a year in pro wrestling. 2024, excited to see more change, more shifting, and just more surprises, shock and awe. And as a pro wrestling fan, you always have your opinions, and just excited to get to chat with you every so often. And I always appreciate the invite, Juice. And I look forward to claiming another victory in the Seinfeld Trivia on January 2nd.
That's true. We have another Seinfeld Trivia event to take over and try to win here as soon as the new year starts. So hopefully by the next time I am sitting down with everybody here in the Juice Box, I will report back that we are a four-time Seinfeld Trivia champion. But yeah, for the Juice Box, I mean, this has been a hell of a year. I started this thing in the beginning of January, 2 or 3 weeks in, so we're not quite to the year yet, but at least for 2023, this will be the last episode. So, Josh, I appreciate all your contributions. I really couldn't have done a lot of this show without your help, because the prediction show, normally my easiest show, I could just sit here and talk about it, but I love bouncing back and forth with you. And it's really just nice to have another voice in the Juice Box, another straw, if you will, to get those opinions that I value so much. I mean, Chair Shot Reality wouldn't have been without you, so the Juice Box wouldn't be here without you either. So how about that?
Thank you very much, Juice. Happy 2023. Yeah. Let's have a great 2024, my friend.
Absolutely. Here's to those who wish us well, and those who don't can go to hell. So this has been the World's End AEW prediction show. I am Juice Springsteen, Juicy Steen on Twitter. He is Josh Isenberg, at Josh Isenberg4 on Twitter. And as always, you can follow us and hang out, chat with us. We've got the pay-per-view this Saturday. Hope everybody enjoy the holiday, and look forward to more wrestling in 2024. I think 2023 was one hell of a wrestling year, and 2024 is shaping up to be big. We got WrestleMania 40 on the horizon. So for Josh Eisenberg, for Juice Springsteen, this has been the World's End Predictions episode of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.